Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about Star Trek Starfleet Academy, Season 1, Episode 1, Kids These Days. And the title, Kids These Days, is pretty much like just the title of it tells you how this show is gonna be. When it comes to this show, it's different. Like, my first impressions of this show after watching the entire thing, actually, the first couple of minutes, my first impressions was this feels like Star Wars, but darker. Then, as I watched the entirety of the first episode, which they had available on the 14th at like 11 p.m. on YouTube, my impressions of this show is like it's exactly like the first two seasons of Discovery, but with comedy and kind of like a young adult novel vibe, which I do not like Star Trek Discovery, especially the first two seasons. It got slightly better by the third and fourth season, but season one and two, no, 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 no. And when you watch the first episode, it is exactly like the first two seasons of like Star Trek Discovery. The shaky cam, the action, the cussing, the 21st century slang, the darkness. I mean, everything's just always dark until you get to the Athena ship. Then it's a little bit more brighter, but like everything's just dark and gritty. There's a new version of Michael Burnham and everything, like named Caleb, and he's like this bad boy, and now he's in Starfleet, and so it's really mimicking Discovery. Which, why in the world would you do that for? First of all, be your own thing, but also be Star Trek. Second, Discovery, well, the JJ movies mostly, but Discovery really divided the fandom. Why in the world would you do something to replicate that divided the fandom? I mean, the new Trek has gone out its way to not be like Discovery because of how much it divided the fandom. So why would you try to replicate that for? I don't get that. Like that's just a weird thing. Because when you watch the first 20 minutes of this, like it takes 20 minutes to get to the intro, the credits and stuff. I'm like 20, what the? But when you watch those first 20 minutes, you literally feel like you're watching Star Wars and everything. And not only do you feel like you're watching Star Wars, it does not feel like you're watching Star Trek. Everything's gritty, everything's dark, everything's moving around real fast. If you were to look at it at first glance, you would not know what you're watching. Like, this is how the beginning of the first 20 minutes look. Think of George Lucas' original prequel with all the heavy CGI and everything, but instead of it being nice and glossy and shiny, have it look all mucky and dark and everything, and that's what you get. Then after those 20 minutes, everything starts to look a little bit more like Star Trek, but new Trek and everything. Now, there are some creative differences that I find very interesting and unique. The dialogue is very cringe and very new Trek, but also they cuss so much in this, and they say the word bitch over and over and over. It's like, because I'm this alien species, bitch. That's the new bitch right there. And it's like, what the? Like, they don't say that in Star Trek, man. Like, why are you? And then the word cool and everything. And the dialogue is very new Trek, but worse. It's pretty much like a young adult novel, which is the vibe the show is going into. So going into this show, I knew it was going to be different, and I knew I wasn't going to like it. But for the love of Star Trek, I decided, hey, try to push that aside and just see what this show is about. You know what I'm saying? And remember what century you're in. You're in the 32nd century. And everything, for the most part, is like a dystopia at this time. And the Starfleet is just trying its best to get its footing back. So the first 20 minutes, I'm like, okay, I'm not liking what I'm seeing, but remember what century you're in. Now, I am kind of curious to see how everything unfolded in the 32nd century when everything went to a dystopia and everything. But because New Trek feels like a dystopia period, there's no point in showing it. But like when I saw all that muckiness and action and this and that, and I'm just kind of like, okay, 32nd century, blah, 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 blah. But like I said before, the dialogue is very cringe. Like in New Trek, I've noticed that there are two things that happen. First, everybody has a tragic backstory. And when they have that tragic backstory, the music plays very, very loudly and everything. It's the traditional Star Trek thing with the loud trumpets and everything, but they're too loud to where you can't hear the people talk. But the captain has a tragic backstory. And the main character has a tragic backstory. Because everybody has a tragic backstory. But then also in New Trek, something I've noticed is that a lot of the female characters, they talk down to the male characters. And this show does it too in the first episode a couple of times. Every time there's a female officer who's like a superior, she always calls the male cadets boy. And not only is she calling them boy and everything, it's always to the black cadet characters. I'm like, what the hell? What the... Like, okay, this show is super progressive. You gonna tell me you gonna call a black person a boy? And not just one, but two? One that's mixed and the other one that's a Klingon? Like, come on, man. Like, are you serious and everything? Like, why would you... Like, who would write that? Like, seriously, who would write that? This is freaking Star Trek, for crying out loud. And so it has that going for it. Now, it does have that young adult vibe to it, like a young adult novel, a YA novel, if you want to call it that. And like I said before, I like young adult like television shows and everything, and teen dramas and stuff. And I love Star Trek, but I don't want those two things mixed together. Basically, this show is like Star Trek Discovery meets everything else New Trek, meets Star Wars, meets young adult novel series, meets comedy and everything. Because there's like an abundance of humor in here. And the humor is just kind of like they're trying to be like Lower Decks in a way. And it's just kind of like... You know, I don't like my Star Trek like that. I've said it before, I like my Star Trek serious and everything. And I do like humor for levity, but I don't want it to be like this big punchline type thing. Not only that, but, oh crap, I just forgot my train of thought. Well, there was something about this show that did something. I can't remember what it was. But until I can remember... This show also incorporated rock and roll music during a fight scene. And then not only that, but then they had music playing in the background, this big hopeful moment, and you hear singing in the background. I'm just kind of like, that's not Star Trek. And I get it. They're going for like a different vibe. They're going for a different generation. But some things need to look the same. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like when you change too much, it doesn't always work out for the best. And I don't know. Like this show is not entirely horrible, but it's not entirely good either. And I don't know. Like, I really don't know. I want to continue watching this, which I don't, because I don't have Paramount Plus. But when I do get it, I don't know if I want to watch this series or not, because I'm not even sure what this series is supposed to be about, other than them being in Starfleet Academy and everything. Like, I know the main character, Caleb, what his goal is to find his mother, but everything else is just, I guess, is just students in the academy and everything. I don't know what the big, story arc is supposed to be because most Star Trek shows kind of have that, you know? Now, the cast is huge. You have the bridge officers of the Athena, which are going to be recurring characters. So don't try to get used to them and everything because they're not the main focus of this show, which is a recurring theme in New Trek, where the bridge crew is just obsolete and everything. The main focus of the show isn't even the teachers because they're recurring as well. But the main focus of the show is actually the cadets, the main core group of them. And they all have their own different personalities and their own alien species. And, so far, my favorite one is probably the Klingon guy. Only because he's a Klingon who wants to be a doctor and everything. And I find that really neat and everything. If only I can think of his name right now. Jaden Regs, I think his name is. Craigs or something like that. He's neat. I like him so far. Now in terms of the look, honestly, it is visually stunning and beautiful and everything. Like the first 20 minutes where everything looked like Star Wars and everything, that's a lot of CGI. Like they put in some good money for that to where it looks cinematic, but on a TV budget. So that was a lot of good CGI, but it's oversaturated with CGI and everything. And the muckiness and the mutedness of it just kind of takes away from it, but it is visually stunning. Then you get to the USS Athena, and the outside of the ship looks pretty cool. I don't like the nacelles because they're really long. And when it goes into warp, it leaves behind dust and smoke particles. And I don't like that. Like, I don't like that in New Trek. It's just kind of weird. Now, as for technology and everything, this is what's kind of odd and interesting. Discovery set up like the new technological like advancements and everything, and so far they seem to have abandoned some of it. Like, okay, your tricorder is also your comm badge, and it has the holographic screen, right? That's something that was set up in Discovery when they went to the 32nd century. Now you have a handheld tricorder because the doctor, the one from Voyager, he asked for his tricorder, and then he's all like medical tricorder, which is a callback to his Voyager first episode. So they got rid of the whole like tricorders on your comm badge thing. Also, the programmable matter that seems to have disappeared from the show as well, kinda. The programmable matter looks the way it did in that first X-Men movie when they were surveilling something, and instead of holograms, it's like these little gray balls that create stuff. This is something that was done to make it look visually different in the 32nd century when they went to Discovery, the Discovery show. But of course, that costs a lot of money. And so they had to retrofit the ship to where, they don't really do that no more. So now you don't see the programmable matter on the ship, but now you have panel screens and everything, just like in old Trek and stuff, to save money. Smart, but at least give it a new look. It just looks like something you would see in today's time. Like, do something like the 29th century. Their terminals and screens look way cooler. It looks Star Trek. It looked futuristic. You take your hand and you hover over it, like the comms on the comm panel and everything, and it does whatever it is you need it to do. Here you just have to tap on everything like the old stuff. Not only that, but they still have isolinear chips. Why? Isolinear chips should have went away with like Voyager and stuff. Like those things should not be around no more. But the fact they're in the 32nd century is weird. But the ship does have programmable matter on the outside of the hull because when it's damaged, it can repair itself and everything. Kind of like nanotech. Now, they still have the holographic screens every once in a while. The panels are still a nice touch, but like I said, that's too much old Trek. Like this is what the problem with Discovery was. They introduced all that holographic crap when they had no business doing it, and they should have saved it for this show. They still have the transporters where you can like think and just go wherever you want. But when the ship was in chaos and everything, nobody was teleporting. They did say, what's his name, blocked it, but he was still able to do it. So I don't know if they just ran out of money or it looked visually cooler to run around and stuff like that. And there are droids on this show, which I don't understand why Star Trek has droids. This is a Discovery Kurtzman thing. Like, he's not the creator of the show, but he is an executive producer and stuff, and his influence is all in this show. You can just, like, see it. I don't want to see droids in Star Trek. I just don't. If they're not going to have a real purpose other than, like, putting out fires, I don't want to see them. Also, with programmable matter, why can't the programmable matter put their own fire out? Like, I don't get that. Now, like I said before, I am mixed about this show because it's kind of like, on one hand, there were some things I did not like, but there were other things that I actually found was very nice. Like when the cadets all came together and they used their skill set to like fix the ship and everything. That was neat. Some of them have alien abilities, which makes it now feel kind of like a supernatural kind of show. But other than that, like I said before, that was really nice. Like, that's very Star Trek to do. But of course, in New Trek, everything has to be chaotic. The camera has to like bounce around. Everybody's running around like chickens with their heads cut off and everything. And it's very New Trek, kind of like Strange New Worlds in the first episode when Chapel was running around the ship and everything. That's kind of like how this is and stuff. I think there's only 10 episodes this season, but they already been renewed for like a second. Oh, I think I remember what I was going to say now. Allegories. Forget that. They still don't do that in New Trek and everything. So basically, one thing they keep repeating over and over is that the captain lady in Starfleet basically ripped his son from his mother and threw her in jail. Gee, I wonder what that sounds like. Could that be what ICE is doing right now and everything? So they're making Starfleet look like the Goon Squad and everything. And so basically, there's something, I don't know what's up with New Trek and orphans and everything. Like, well, actually, Old Trek had a bunch of orphans too. So yeah, but the way Starfleet going about it is kind of weird, and this is something I've noticed in New Trek. Basically, if something happens to your parents as a result of Starfleet, Starfleet will automatically take you in and force you to join Starfleet Academy against your will and everything, which is something Starfleet is not supposed to do. Now, they did it like Saru, like when Saru contacted Starfleet, and they're all like, "Oh, we made first contact with you. Sorry, but you have to come with us now and everything. And you can no longer see your planet or your family." And they literally took Saru back in Discovery. And I'm just kind of like, that's not what Starfleet does. Even if they make first contact with a species that's not warp capable and everything, they don't force you into Starfleet. And once again, this is making Starfleet look kind of like, some type of Germany back in World War II or something like that, And so they made Caleb like an orphan and stuff. And he didn't want to do it. And he didn't want to join Starfleet. And so I don't understand what is up with this when it comes to like Star Trek. It's like tragic backstory, women are rude to men, and like making people orphans and forcing them into Starfleet. But there was no allegory with that. Old Trek, there's an allegory. New Trek is what's ever going on in America in current events. They show now on New Trek and they boldly state it and stuff. And I miss allegories. Now, there are a whole bunch of aliens. There are new aliens that are hybrids. I like that. And we get to see some familiar alien faces like Orions and like that one species that has like one side of their face is black and the other one's white. But the thing is, it's the new makeup. The colors are all wrong. They're all bright and there's like tons of goopy makeup on their face. And I don't understand that. Like, why not match the color of like the original show and everything? But whatever. Now in terms of also aliens, a lot of the cadets are aliens, but they look human, so that's normal in Star Trek. However, now since they got better prosthetics and makeup, I was kind of hoping they would look a little different, or at least have a cranial ridge. These people ain't got no cranial ridges and stuff. One dude is completely human looking, but his face is able to morph because he's a different type of alien, and he's able to go outside the ship and breathe out in the outer space for a couple of minutes. Why can't he look the way he normally does, like 24/7, instead of looking human? I don't know. And if he's gonna look human, then what's the deal with him? Is it like he just wants to be human? Does he want to look human? Like, what's the deal? Like, you know what I'm saying? So the Athena itself is basically their comm badge. Like the symbol on the comm badge is the way the ship looks, which is weird. I don't get that. But I do like parts of the ship. Like I can't even think of what this is called. My head is just like so fuzzy right now. I know I hate the nacelles. They're way too big. But I like the other part of the ship. The I'm just gonna call it the head for now because I'm getting like a brain fart moment and I can't think of what it's called. The um the giant ring, of like the main part of the ship. I like that. The interior is really nice looking. Like, it's basically a glossier, shinier version of like Discovery and stuff. The way their ships look like in the inside is very, very, very high glossy. It's very inviting, it's very warm. But the bridge part just basically looks like your standard like Star Trek like bridge, which is how it's supposed to look. But I was looking for something slightly more different, kind of like the 29th century with their time ships and everything. I really like the format of that. It's just like two episodes, or actually one episode of like, where you get to see the bridge of like the interior of a time ship. They really try to make it look futuristic, you know what I'm saying? Here, it just looks all more the same with panels that are reminiscent of like the olden days, but just different like symbols and stuff like that. They could have went a little bit more sci-fi with that, in my opinion. Some programmable matter would have been nice because why introduce that in Discovery? You're not going to do that here. But I get it. It costs a lot of money and stuff like that. But how often are they going to be on the bridge? You know what I'm saying? So it's just kind of like one of those things. Um, they have a tree in the middle of like somewhere in the ship, which is kind of neat, you know what I'm saying? But we really don't get to see too much of the ship. It's mostly just corridors and hallways and, like a gathering place and like, the cadet dorms and, stuff like that. So I'm hoping to see more of the like interior. I'm hoping to see more of like, engineering and sick bay and, stuff like that. Now, before I get into character bios and stuff like that, first off, when it comes to this show, like I said before, it is Discovery, but with a teen like drama vibe to it, Like you have Caleb, who's Michael Burnham. You have the Klingon dude who's like Saru. The guy, I can't think of his name right now. He's like a jerk. He's kind of like Stamets and stuff. You have, I'm trying to think real fast. I can't remember their name. Genesis, I think. She is like, I don't know who she's like on Discovery, because the other two females on Discovery, they don't really show their personality that much. So, but I guess you can just base her off of that one short like character and stuff. And then of course you have Sam, who is like the Tilly of the show and everything. And it's just kind of like, why? Why make carbon copies of characters from, like, the previous show? When they made TNG, they made those characters completely different from that of the original series. Crusher doesn't act like McCoy. Picard doesn't act like Kirk. Geordi doesn't act like Scotty or nothing like that. Like, and Crusher, Wesley, he doesn't act like Sulu. So why do that? Like, I don't get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, be original. Because when you watch this episode, you see a lot of callbacks to other stuff, And so we get introduced to Caleb. Caleb is like the new Michael Burnham, if you will. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's angsty, he's angry, he disobeys orders. He does something in the beginning of, like, the first episode that causes so much chaos with the enemy and everything, and he has to be the one to fix it. So we have another Michael Burnham on our hands. But at least this time they let the other crew members help along. He's not the only one just saving the day. And we first meet him as like a little boy with his mother. His mother is played by the She-Hulk actress Tatiana Maslany. And so basically with them, they're living on some alien planet. And his mother is a thief who stole bread and everything. And Baccarat or something like that, like the villain dude who's Tellarite and Klingon, he basically fed them when they had no food, and she killed the person apparently when stealing and stuff like that. Starfleet comes in like the Goon Squad. They're coming in like ice and everything. They're like barging in the doors. They're snatching people. They're putting you in handcuffs. And then they have these really old-fashioned, like sci-fi looking weapons where it's like a long stick with like a collar to it and it can electrocute you. They couldn't come up with something more futuristic than that. And so, like, they take her and put her on trial, and they put back, what's that dude's name? Nas Barca or something like that. They put him on trial, and he's very over the top and everything, right? But anyway, back to Caleb. So the mom gets put in jail, and so does Barca, what his name is. And so they tell Caleb as a little kid, hey, you're going to Starfleet now and everything. We're going to take you in. You're going to be an orphan. Well, he's sneaky and everything, steals the captain's comm badge and gets on out of there. And we don't see him for 15 years later. He's now older, and just like Michael Burnham, has an attitude problem. He has a long list of criminal charges, and he just turned out to be a bad boy, which is something his mom never wanted him to do. So while, like, on a transport ship and everything, he's taking the Starfleet and stuff. And so basically, he once again is forced to like join Starfleet and stuff. Now they had him using nunchucks to fight with. I don't know how I feel about that. I understand if, say, you're in a holodeck and say you're fencing, or you're just in your room and you're fencing. Fine. But to have this be like a normal weapon, that's kind of weird for Star Trek and everything. Now, the woman who made him an orphan, but like I said before, Caleb is the new Michael Burnham. Like, he's edgy, he's tough, he's smart. and he's going to be the central focus of the show. He is going to be going through a redemption arc and everything. And he's starting to do that just like Michael Burnham in the first episode and stuff. You know, he doesn't want to be there in Starfleet. He wants to be on his own. And like, but you see, he does care about new people and his surroundings and stuff. Like even the guy who was a jerk to him and wanted to fight him, he was worried that guy's gonna go out on the ship's hull and without an environmental suit and stuff. You know, he was worried because he put everybody's life in danger by making that secret call and everything, you know? And just like with Michael Burnham, he has mommy issues and stuff. And it's just kind of like, why are they cloning Discovery's crew onto like these new people? Like, I don't get that. So far, you have a Tilly, a Saru, and a Michael Burnham. And those are the ones that, well, also, you also have a, Stamets and everything in the form of that of like, you know, the guy who's like a jerk. And as for the doctor, I don't know yet. Like who he's like from, from Discovery. I don't know which character like that is like, you know, from this new show. And it's kind of like, why make carbon copies and everything? Like making a carbon copy is just the laziest thing ever. When they made TNG, they didn't base all those characters on the original characters. Picard acts nothing like Kirk. Like Crusher acts nothing like, you know, McCoy and stuff. It's Holly Hunter's character, Captain Aki, I think her name is. She's half Lanther Light or something like that. Whatever that woman from Strange New World is, Palea, whatever species she is, this is what she is. So she's not what Guinan is at all, but she's what Palea is. And they have Lone Jeopardy. Aki is like, you know, over 425 years and old, and she used to have a son. Tragic backstory. He was in Starfleet Academy. Tragic backstory. And he died. Tragic backstory. So basically, after Caleb escaped the first time, she's all like, I'm done with Starfleet, pulling the Picard and everything. And so Admiral Vance comes in, is all like, yo, I need you to teach, like, you know, the academy and this and that and blah, blah, blah. You be a counselor and everything. And she doesn't want to do it because she's a teacher now. I don't know. Yeah, I forget what, she was on Bajor and everything. Now, for some reason, Bajor has like an amber filter to it for some bizarre reason. But anyway, what the heck happened to Vance? Like, this dude looks super old. Either they put prosthetics on him to make him look old, or he's been hitting the injections and everything. Along with Holly, too. I wish Hollywood would stop. I hate seeing Star Trek stars with Botox and fillers and Lord Jesus. Anyway, with her, she's stern, motherly, and tries to act like a 20-year-old, which I do not appreciate. They try to make her feel like the hip older woman, you know, like those college students that be like older in their 50s and they're surrounded by 20-year-olds and they're trying to be like hip and everything. That's how she is. The way she sits in her captain's chair insults me very much. She sits like a bored teenager scrolling on a cell phone and everything. But she's not scrolling on a cell phone, she's reading a book. And her feet are in the chair and she's slouching and she's laying down. And this is just how she is when she's in her chair. I hate that so much. That is not Star Trek. Like, that is not how a military, I don't know if Starfleet's really a military, but that's not how you're supposed to sit in a chair. And why does she have glasses for? This is the 32nd freaking century. I hate seeing glasses in Star Trek. It's stupid. Like, these people are supposed to have good eyesight and everything. But anywho, so like, she is trying to calm Caleb down and trying to get him to like join Starfleet against his will. And she lets him know that, hey, your mom escaped like a year ago and everything. But his mom did not come looking for him. So this is Caleb's mission, to find his mother, and why hasn't she looked for him and everything? Since she's supposed to love him so much and stuff. And so, like, this is when we get introduced to the cadets and everything. Now, the Athena is, like I said, a nice big ship, and they're heading to Earth. Starfleet Academy is going to be taught on Earth, like it used to hundreds of years ago. Also, I forgot to mention, so when you're in Starfleet Academy, it automatically grooms you. It fixes your hair, it shaves you, and it puts you in a uniform. Now, I like that, because that's something far, far in the future, like unlike the 24th century and everything. So I'm for that. So that's kind of cool and everything. But like, yeah, so we're getting introduced to like our new like students and everything. First, let's introduce us to the good old doctor, who still does not have a name so far. 900 years old and the man still don't have a name. And he said that 500 years ago, he added something in his program to make him look older because it kept freaking the humans out and everything. They still don't explain how he survived for 900 years. His matrix should have degraded by now, but it has not. And hopefully they will explain that in the series and stuff. And so he's basically the exact same as he was back on Voyager. Not one thing has changed with this man, and I mean nothing. So you mean to tell me in 900 years they couldn't change this guy's personality up? Like, all his friends are gone. They're dead, you know what I'm saying? All his loved ones are dead. And it's just kind of like, they couldn't do nothing. He doesn't even have like a holographic family or like an organic family or nothing like that. He still likes the opera. He still likes to sing. And it's just kind of like he's still snarky and sarcastic. Nothing has changed with this man in 900 freaking years and stuff. Hopefully, with the rest of the series, they will change something up with him. Because so far in the first episode, he is literally the exact same doctor from Voyager. But you know, the thing about the doctor, and I think I mentioned this before when I talked about how, like, you know, who's all going to be in this show, is, yeah, they really need to explain how this dude been alive for 900 years. Even Data said, even he's not immortal. At some point, his programming body is going to break down and everything. And when it comes to the doctor, you know, when they was on Voyager, they really made it seem like even his program isn't forever and stuff. So they need to explain how come out of all the EMHs and stuff, he's the only one from that time period that's still around. Also, the special effects for his hologram stuff, this been upgraded to look more like New Trek. Okay, fine. But does that mean he is like the other holograms in the 32nd century? Let's not forget season 3 of Discovery. The only time they ever had like a holographic doctor, something did not make sense with that freaking show. The show made it canon to where holographic doctors talk almost in like an AI robotic kind of way. They also have like a vacant stare and they're slightly glowish, I think. And if you blink really, 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 really fast, it destables their matrix and messes them up, which is really stupid, but this is New Trek for you. So, does that mean that the doctor, if you blink really, really fast, will it make him talk all like crazy and stuff? And if it doesn't, why is he superior and the new advanced ones are not? They need to explain this in the series and everything. Also, why did the doctor act kind of surprised when he found out Sam comes from a world where there's tons of like holograms? Does Earth not do that? What about the EMHs we saw in Discovery Season 3? Like, it's almost like these people don't watch other Star Trek shows to keep the canon canon. And I just hope they explain, because if they don't explain, then that shows they have a disregard to the fans. It shows that they could care less and everything. Like, this matters to me. Canon matters to me. Some people, it don't. I don't care about them. I care about myself. And it's like, canon matters and stuff. Like, Star Trek matters to me. Star Trek Voyager matters to me. The Doctor matters to me because I was a fan of the Doctor and everything. And it's just kind of like, if you're not going to take the time and the respect to explain something like this, at least for the fans, then why the heck are you even making this show? And why did you put him in the show? Like, nostalgia and everything? I don't care about that if you're going to mess with my head canon. So Jaden Crag, I think that's his name. He is the Klingon dude. I like this character. He's neat. They gave him dreadlocks for some reason and stuff. I guess that's a new Klingon hairstyle. And so, like, he is actually very soft-spoken, very kind. He talks very slow for some reason. I'm not sure if that's how the actor talks. I do know when he was cast for this role, he contacted Michael Dern, and whoever plays Saru, because he wanted to get their like impressions of how to act like really alien-like and stuff. So he's kind of a combination of those two. He's in the medical field, which is really neat and everything. Like, but even though he's in the medical field, so here's my thing, right? I need this show and New Trek to stop making all the young people super geniuses and everything. I get it. This is their show. They are supposed to do things, but they're in the academy. They should not know how to do all this cool stuff yet. But yet, they're such geniuses that they're able to work the equipment, learning how to like stop like a warp core breach, how to fix somebody who's been impaled and everything. So basically, he befriends Caleb and everything. And when Caleb's being bullied by somebody else, he steps in and they're gonna be friends. So that's cool. Now, the first officer gets hurt and everything to where something's lodged in her stomach, and he has to perform surgery with the help of this holographic woman. And I'm just kind of like, he's a cadet. Even with her help, he shouldn't be able to do all this. And he's worried and, he's not sure what to do. And he's praying he doesn't kill her on the first day and everything. And so I like how they didn't make him like overly perfect, but still the doctor should have been doing that. But of course the doctor's someplace else doing the doctor stuff. Or he's just he's just walking around the ship. No, wait, he's doing medical triage someplace. But still, it's just kind of like, he's a cadet. You know what I'm saying? And not only is he one, but everybody else is, and they fixed the ship. And I'm just kind of like, that's not what I want to see with a cadet show, Like, I want to see them be taught. I want to see them struggle. Like, you know what I'm saying? Now, Sam is a hologram. She is, I think, a service acclimated male or something like that. But she's not like a human holographic thing like the doctor. She does look human, but she's a Castellan or something like that. I'm not sure how to say all these new alien names and stuff. It's like some type of alien species or something like that. I don't know, maybe, because why wouldn't she be a Starfleet hologram and everything? But anyway, she's only a few weeks old, but she's programmed to be 17, but she don't look 17. And she's the comedic relief of the show. She's very naive, like she's very skittish and everything. She's basically Tilly and everything. But she's basically just there for comedic relief. but she really, really, really wants to make a lot of friends, but she's really scared, but she's over enthusiastic. One person she tries to bond with is the doctor, but he kind of doesn't want nothing to do with her for some rude reason. I don't know why. Like, you think he'll be more happy to have like a hologram and everything. Now, apparently, her species, they haven't interacted with organics in a long time. And so she's really happy to get to meet some and stuff. Raimi, I think that's his name. He's this really smug alien, and I'm not even sure what kind of alien species he is. 'Cause a lot of these are the first ones going to Starfleet, Coloan or something like that. And he looks human, but when he has to use his special abilities like breathe out in outer space, his face morphs to this alien blue looking thing, and he's able to survive out in space for like a short while and everything. And but he's really smug, really arrogant, and tries to start a fight with Caleb on the first day. And so that's really all I got for him. Now, Genesis Light or Leif or whatever her name is, she acts like a spoiled little princess and everything. Um, I'm not even sure what kind of alien species she is. I think that's the one Tilly found in that short trek and everything. So I think I don't know. Like she's very spoiled. Like when she caught Caleb doing an encrypted like transmission trying to find his mom and everything, she's all like, I'll have you do this for me. And she basically makes him like her servant. Like, you're gonna brush my teeth, you're gonna bathe me, you're gonna chew up my food and spit it in my mouth like a little bird, and stuff like that. And she's nice, but in a snarky kind of mean girl kind of way, but kind of like a valley girl kind of way. She's just very spoiled, but she is very, very smart. And she does help, like, the ship when it's like under siege and everything. Now, Laura Talk, I think that's her name is. She's the hybrid of like a Jim Hardar and like a Klingon. She's gonna have a recurring role. She's the first officer. She is very. I kind of like her character. Like you always wonder what would those two species be like. She's very abrasive, very stern. Very follow the orders and in the rank of command type thing. She's also very mean, but she also has comedic relief because she's played by a comedian and everything. Like when she gets impaled, like she's just it's kind of like a really comedic moment, and I don't like comedy in Star Trek, but it was pretty funny and stuff. She's just a loyal for first officer and stuff. Now, Nas Braca, this dude is just off the wall insane. Like, he's very, very comedic, he's a character actor. Like, he's one of those outrageous villains they always have in New Trek now. Like, he feels like he would fit more in the original series than in Star Trek. He's over the top. He hates Starfleet. He knows Caleb and the mother and everything, and he tries to destroy the ship and everything, and he intercepted the message that Caleb sent to his mom trying to find her, and that's how they was able to track down the ship. I'm not sure what his end game is, so he's just a bombastic villain and everything. And that's the conflict in the show. Like, he helped Caleb mom escape. He might be holding her captive, probably. And so when Caleb sent a message to his mom out in the subspace, Barack, like, intercepted it and everything and basically tried to destroy the Athena. And so, like, they had to bluff their way out of it by making him leave, like, the ship. But then him and Caleb fought hand to hand, which I'm so tired of seeing in Star Trek. This is not the original series. There's a reason why they used to fight hand to hand combat, because it was the 60s. And they fought to rock and roll music and stuff. So he's an interesting villain, but I do wonder what is his end game, Now, the series wasn't even created by Alex Kurtzman. He directed the first episode, and he's going to direct another. But this was actually created by Gaia Valola. I'm not sure how to say that. And so basically, like I said before, I have mixed feelings about this. It feels exactly like Discovery, but with like a YA novel comedy vibe to it. Um, it's what you expect with like New Trek, but I thought New Trek was trying to move away from New Trek and try to get more traditional, but I guess not. They were sneaky to renew this show for a second season without having the general audience watch it. I don't know how long this show is gonna last past the second season. Like I said before, it's not entirely horrible, but it's not entirely good either. This is not how I would create like a Starfleet Academy show. And I've always wanted to see a Starfleet Academy show. This is something that should have happened in TNG or D Space Nine when it came to Wesley or Nog. Like they should have created one back then. I just don't understand why would they a few years back try to like, be like, okay, we heard the complaints, we're trying to fix the shows and everything, only to go back in time to when Discovery screwed everything up. Like I don't get that. It's trying to be too many things at once. It's trying to be Star Wars. It's trying to be Discovery. It's trying to be Lower Decks. And it's just trying to be New Trek in general by, mimicking like old Trek and stuff, kind of to a small degree. And I just want them to, like I want what I want from a Starfleet Academy show. I want to see them in school learning, struggling. Then I also want to see them on the ship doing away missions, trying to get them in the field to see like, hey, this is how things feel for something bad to happen and they have to fix it. That is something I would like to see. But instead, we're gonna have like them being in school while also going on this side mission of the whole Caleb and his mother thing, and now this villain. And it makes you wonder, okay, well, when this season is done, what are they going to do in the next season? And the villain's still going to be there. We're going to have a new villain. Are there going to be some type of destruction that they could fix or something like that? What's the deal with Caleb's mother? And it's just kind of like, I don't know. Like, if I ever do get Paramount Plus, I might check it out just to see if it's getting a little bit better or whatever. But if it still stays like the same, then I'll probably check out. I mean, like I said before, I do like teen dramas. I do like young adult dramas. I love Star Trek, but I don't want those things combined. Like, I just don't. Now, of course, you're gonna have those that just gonna hate on this show for the sake of hating on it. In fact, they've been hating on it leading up to this show for over a year now, once they started seeing pictures and the cast and everything like that. Making fun of people by the way they look. And I'm not talking about the characters on the show, I'm talking about the actors and the actresses, their sexualities and stuff like that. Like even before the show aired 10 hours in advance, Paramount let the comment sections open. And I saw one comment talking about go woke, go broke. And the episode didn't even air yet. Well, the Running Man did not go woke and it had its white cast and it still bombed at the box office. Ooh. So these people aren't going to complain about that. But the moment they see a black person, a Latino person, I'm actually surprised this show doesn't have not one Asian person. There's one on the bridge, but he's just going to be a recurring character. Once they start seeing a female, once they start seeing somebody the LGBT, they are going to complain left and right. So sadly, once again, fandoms have to deal with that bull crap just so people can pay their light bills and everything by YouTube money. And, just watch this show for yourself and judge it on your own. For me, it's not the type of Star Trek I would enjoy, you know? Like, there are some things that are cool with this show, there are some things that are not. You know, there are some things to get used to. For the most part, was it a solid, like, pilot? Somewhat, yes. You know what I'm saying? Like, you do get what they're going for, but why just recopy what other Star Trek shows have done? That's very annoying and everything. I don't need to see Discovery 2.0 mixed in with Beverly Hills 90210. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.